So it's not a like for like recreation of the house, although I am putting the shell together. So I had The Sims 2 open at the same time as The Sims 4, and I was kind of flicking back and forth between the games so I could get the shell right. But what I wanted to do was, first of all, put the shell together and then play around with the house to make it look like it belonged in Willow Creek. As you can see here, you're just putting the shell together, and then I will start taking it apart and putting it together as I'm doing now, or putting it back together. So the house more or less stays the same in terms of the floor plan, and I try to keep as much of it as recognizable as possible. So the backyard still has its swimming pool. There's some items that are in the same place that they were in the Sims 2. So I did try to keep some references to the original house, but for the most part I did want to renovate it so that it kind of functioned a bit better and took into account some gameplay from The Sims 4. This house, while I do love the Pleasant House from The Sims 2, I think it's a really unique house. It's got a unique floor plan, and it is very distinct and pretty iconic, but it is very, very difficult. I did keep the floor plan as much as possible, but it was a very difficult floor plan to work with. And as you can see here, one of the changes that I made to the house was I changed the roof from a gabled loft style roof to a mansard roof. I tried looking around, I was looking at reference photos around New Orleans to see if I could find a house that somewhat looked like the Pleasance house and then kind of go off that. But those style, the kind of the gabled loft style roofs, that look like the Pleasant house aren't really that common in the South by the looks of it, but mansard roofs are definitely more common, so I just went ahead with the mansard roof. And I do love a mansard roof. It's definitely one of my favorite type of builds to do, as a building with a mansard roof. I just think they look really elegant and kind of grand, and they just have a very ornate kind of look to them. So it's only seemed fitting to put it on the Pleasant house. I mean, really, I couldn't think of anything else to do with it. I did play around with the shell quite a few times to see what kind of looks I could put together, but in the end, I just felt like the mansard roof was definitely the better way to go, to not only change up the roof and make it look more southern, but maintain the loft style roof of the original house. So I've pretty much finished with the exterior shell at least. I'm just kind of fiddling around with the roof. The roof was definitely the most tricky part to put together. In terms of the floor plan, it does expand a little bit just to account for the extra space that was created because of the mansard roof. But it does also mean that there is a bit of dead space that I had to fill in with platforms, and that's just because there's a weird kind of visual glitch when roof pieces intersect with walls. So I tried to cover that up as much as possible. So you can see I've kind of closed off the dormers on the back of the house because the roof pieces and the build mode walls weren't connecting very well, and you could see the external siding on the inside of the house, just a tiny bit of it. So the only way to really get around that was to kind of put extra wall pieces in and close off those sections of the dormers. I went with a white siding, and that just, I haven't done a white house just yet. At least, I haven't done a white house just yet. So I went with a white siding with green accents. In terms of the color scheme for the house, I wanted to go with deep kind of earthy tones, and thinking back to the Pleasant house, the original one in The Sims 2, it does kind of have kind of dark earthy tones to it. So I wanted to maintain that in this build. So there's definitely a lot of browns, deep greens, oranges, beige, and I guess some other colors. Just more rich, deep colors. And the girls' rooms, the Angela and Lilith's rooms, are very, very different. You'll see them a bit towards the end of the speed video, but they definitely maintain their distinct style. So Angela's room is very bright and girly, whereas Lilith's room is much darker and kind of goes with her goth theme. The girls are quite, I mean, in The Sims 2, their personalities are very similar. I don't like the traits that they were given in The Sims 4, so I do change them. And I did kind of play up a little bit of Lilith's personality in The Sims 2, how she is a little bit more sloppy than her sister. So I made her room a bit more messy than Angela's. And yeah, I also gave them some different activities in their room. Well, Angela's activities aren't really that exciting, but in my game, Angela is active, so she shares the exercise equipment with her father, whereas Lilith's hobby is music, and that's kind of confined to her bedroom. But we will see that a little bit later. I'm just putting the exterior of the house together, and I'm just kind of fiddling around with this back porch here. So some of the changes that I did make were, I got rid of those indents that were on the back of the house, just so that it had a smoother kind of a smoother wall, like a flat wall on the back. And that was more or less just to help with the interior, just to make a little bit more space, especially for the master bedroom. And the weird kind of hall space between the master bedroom and I guess the dining room, the dining and kitchen room. So the dining room and the kitchen. So yeah, you'll see this all as we go. I'm kind of getting ahead of myself here. I'm just working on the landscaping right now, putting that together, and I wanted to make it really lush and green. In terms of Mary Sue, like her personality in The Sims 2, her biography says that she likes pottery, and there isn't any pottery activity in The Sims 4, so I put some gardening and flower arranging activities in the house. I mean, there's only the bonsai tree for flower arranging, but there's also some space for gardening in the backyard. Because I'm building this on Potter's Play, the lot is much smaller than the lot size in The Sims 2, so I did have to condense everything down. So they don't have nowhere near as big of a backyard as they do in The Sims 2, but I was able to fit in all the staples that they have in The Sims 2. So they still have their swimming pool, they still have the swing set, and the lounge chairs and all that. So they don't miss out on anything. Well, I wasn't able to, leave anything out really, but it's just, yeah, it's definitely a lot smaller. And that's because Willow Creek only has a couple of free lots, and I think they're both like 20 by 30s. Oh, no, actually, no, I'm wrong. There is a bigger one in Foundry Cove, but I've already put something on that, and that area just didn't seem appropriate for the Pleasance to live. I mean, that's more of a starter neighborhood, whereas this neighborhood, I think it's more for established families. So yeah, you can see here I'm just putting the fence around the place, and I went with a live edit fence just because I think they look better than the build mode fences, and they can look really good, especially with the tool mod, being able to manipulate them, and if there's any sort of overlapping or flickering, you can kind of take care of that with tool, as I'm doing here. And so I went with a stone fence that goes all the way around, and I also added just merged in a wooden fence into the stone fence in the backyard, and that's because the stone fence was too low, and I just thought, well, if they've got a swimming pool in their backyard, surely they'd want some privacy. So I just added that wooden fence just so that they did, the townies that hang out behind the house and, grill away all day and, are obsessed with their grilled food. Don't want those townies spying on the Pleasance, so I put up the wooden fence and just surrounded it with some hedges so it looks nice and lush. So Mary Sue is into gardening, so I wanted her to have a reasonably substantive garden here. So a lot of hedges, a lot of shrubs, and some flowers, and yeah. So in terms of the packs that I used for this house, I used Snowy Escape, High School Years, I used Seasons, game packs I used Dream Home Decorator, Parenthood, I used Laundry Day stuff, and the kits I used were the clutter kits, so bathroom clutter and everyday clutter, and I also used basement treasures because I really wanted to use that rubber plant, so I included that kit in this build as well. Now I have been limiting the packs that I've been using for my builds lately, and I think I might do a few more builds where I use unlimited packs just to kind of play around more with the stuff and really test my creativity. This house definitely tested my creativity. One of the things that I'm really struggling with in The Sims 4 is the limited amount of swatches and just trying to play with swatches and having them work together. And we'll talk about that more when I get to the interior, but that was definitely one of the challenges that I faced with this house, especially with the color scheme that I wanted to use, and I guess the pack availability and the wall textures that I wanted to use, because I had a specific wall texture that I wanted to put throughout the whole house, and it only came in a limited amount of colors, and only really a few of those really were earthy tones, and so I felt like I was struggling a bit to get the colors to coordinate, and yeah. But we'll talk about that a little bit later. I'm just decorating the exterior of the house. They're giving them their furniture, so they've got their 2 lounge chairs there, they've got some space for gardening, the swing sets out there, and there's also a barbecue and a table and chairs. Moving back to the front of the house, the decorating on the front of the house, the front porch here does change a little bit towards the end as I discover more items from other expansion packs, because I hadn't really built with Snowy Escape before, so I wasn't that familiar with the items that came with it, and it actually comes with a few potted plants, like a cluster of potted plants that look really good, so I put those on the front porch instead of what I've got there at the moment. So now I've moved on to the interior of the house, and you can see here, so I did put carpet in the rooms, and it's a green carpet. In the original house, the Pleasants do have carpet throughout their house, and I think it's different colors, which I don't like. In houses, like, I prefer, if there's going to be carpet, then it needs to be the same color throughout the whole house. So I went with the green carpet just because it was the most earthy looking one, and it really complemented the wall color that I put in the living room. So you can see here I'm putting that together and putting the lounge suite in, the TV, the coffee table, all that stuff. And I mean, carpet, I feel like it's not really that popular in Sims 4 builds, because I do watch other people's build videos just to get inspiration and see what people are doing in the game. And yeah, it just doesn't seem like carpet is that popular. I think there is a perception that carpet can make a place look a bit drab, but I don't really associate carpet with a cheap house or, you know, a low end or anything like that. I feel like carpet is more associated with colder climates because it is a good insulator. Even though Willow Creek is set in the south of the United States where it's warm, I guess it wouldn't really make sense for there to be a carpeted house, but this is kind of just referencing the original house in The Sims 2, which does have carpet. So yeah, I'd put in carpet. There's also this little reading nook off the side of the living room here, because the living room is a bit larger than it was in the original house, and yeah, and that's, like, I'm glad I did that, because in the original Sims 2 house, the living room is so tiny, especially compared to the master bedroom. Like, it's half the size of the master bedroom. So I did expand it a little bit, and in doing so, it allowed me to cut off the little nook there, or close it off, and yeah, I just turned it into a little reading space. And now I've moved on to the hallway, and yeah, this was, I mean, hallways just really, they're not the most fun thing to decorate. I wouldn't say they're not fun, they're just difficult because there's only so much you can put in a hallway before it starts looking weird. And this is like a dedicated hallway space, so it's completely closed off and there's nothing else in here. And so I was struggling to figure out what to put in here so that it looked like a normal hallway, but not too cramped, but not too empty. You're trying to find the perfect balance. So I feel like I achieved it somewhat. There are some spaces in this house that were just really difficult to work with, and that's partly because I was trying to maintain the original flow of the house, so the floor plan as much as possible, and it did create some awkward spaces for decorating. So yeah, I think that, you know, just part of me trying to maintain the original house I did make the build much more difficult for myself. I wasn't really giving myself much liberty in changing things because I do want this house to be recognizable and, you know, to feel like you are playing in the Pleasance house. So yeah, as you can see here, part of the one of the quirks, I guess, this is just a symptom of the house being on a smaller lot, is that I had to bring the fireplace inside the house. Well, not the fireplace, the chimney inside the house, because the lot was too small for the chimney to be on the exterior. So I had to bring it inside. I do like to play with realistic chimneys in my houses, so that was just one of the compromises that I had to make, and it did make a bit of an awkward decorating space, but I feel like I got it to work okay. But as you can see here, the kitchen is in its original space. Things aren't necessarily in the exact same space, so the island counters here are on the right hand side, whereas in the original house I think they're on the left hand side of the kitchen and dining space. So in order for me to maintain the wall textures that I've used throughout the house, but also have a backsplash in the kitchen, I went through Live Edit and I just pulled up a stone wall and shrunk it down and then just put it behind the kitchen counters, and that just adds a bit more detail, and it's a nice way of doing a backsplash. I know there is like a backsplash item that came with the recent Lovestruck expansion pack, but the swatches for that they didn't really fit the style that I was going for, so I couldn't use those, although that is a really handy item and I'm probably going to use it in other items, in other builds. So I've kind of slapped the kitchen together, but I'm going to come back and do some more detail on that, and now I've just started putting the dining room together. So the kitchen's more or less on one side of the fireplace, and then the dining space is on the other side. I guess the fireplace kind of creates this divide between the kitchen and the dining space that wasn't really there before. But keep in mind that this space here, I believe it's a little bit longer than the original Pleasance, the kitchen and dining space. I believe it is anyway. Because I've renovated the Pleasance house in The Sims 2 so many times, and I don't believe I've ever been able to pull the dining table this far towards the back porch. So I did try and play around with more items from Parenthood. I tried using the Parenthood kitchen set, but that comes in some really bright, out of it colors that I wasn't too keen on using. There is like a couple of neutral swatches in that set, but they do look very bright and didn't really go with the kind of the darker earthy tones that I wanted to bring throughout this house. So I just used a base game set of counters and cabinets, and yeah, that's just, I feel like it looks better and just fits the wood tones just fit the overall theme that I was going with. I put in this nice big bookshelf from Seasons, and because this house uses the medium wall height, I was able to fit this bookshelf in because it's actually a really, really tall bookshelf. I think it can only be used, it can't be used on the shortest wall height, that's for sure. It's super tall, but it did fill out the space nicely, and here I am just cluttering it up with some details and some decor. There's a nice little bonsai plant there and some storage containers, and yeah. So in terms of the decorating that I did on the ground floor, I did want it to be quite tidy. I consider Mary Sue to be a little bit uptight, and she wants her space to be very tidy and neat and clean. So the ground floor is definitely a lot tidier than the upstairs, because as we go upstairs, when we move upstairs, you'll see that I start to put a bit more mess around the place. And you know, that's just, I guess, where people don't really go, or guests don't go. It's only really where Lilith and Angela go, and Daniel goes upstairs to work out. So yeah, you will see as I start to transition upstairs that things start getting a little more chaotic. So I've just laid out all the clutter that I'm going to put in the kitchen, and I'm putting it all into place. I've put these wine bottles right up on top of this china cabinet here. I mean, I did that more or less to just kind of hide it, like, you know, maybe the parents hide it away from their teenagers or make it somewhat out of reach. But I mean, they could always just get a chair and go up there and take it down. I don't know. So I'm continuing on with the clutter for the kitchen, putting everything into place. What I've been doing with clutter, well, sometimes anyway, I try and do it most of the time, is I just kind of lay it all out, go through the catalog, pick out everything that I want to use, lay it all out, and then just start putting it away, so to speak, because it just saves time, especially for editing as well. Like, I could kind of go through and pick out things individually and then put them into place individually, but that would take so long, and the editing that would be really, really hard. So it's just easier for me to dump it all out and cut out all the footage of me scrolling through the catalog, because that's not very interesting and it creates a lot of awkward pauses. So I'm putting together the final details for the kitchen. I'm just kind of looking around. I think I was looking around to see where I could put these this pile of books, and then I noticed that the curtains or the blinds, I wanted them to be at the same height as the cabinets, just so it didn't create this awkward kind of dip between the two objects, the cabinets and the blinds. So I moved those about, and I'm also putting in some wall lights and moving the light switch and the thermostat out of the way so I could put a notice board by the front door, so the girls are reminded every time they leave the house that they have a curfew. So yeah, that's just a bit of extra gameplay there for this house. And then just doing some final touches on the dining room there, or the fireplace. No, that was the bookshelf. Now I've come into this hallway space, so I just closed it off. So there is kind of like, I guess there's kind of 3 hallways, but the end hallway is a bit more filled out. I put in like a study space here, so I put in this desk, and then I put in like a cabinet from Snowy Escape, and I moved the desk back forward a little bit so that it looked like it was built into this cabinet, and then I used some cabinets from Dream Home Decorator just to make it look like it was a kind of a built-in unit there, and that filled up the space really nicely and just added some more, I guess, depth to the room. So I was really pleased with how it came together, and also put in a love seat and an end table. And one of the, like, when I was playing around with this build, I actually put the love seat facing the stairs, and that was just so stupid. So now I am decorating the shelves, and so I've just got some books, some ornaments, a plant, and a picture. The shelf on the far right, only a couple of those cubbies have actual slots in them, so I could only put a couple of things on them. When it comes to decorating shelves and these kind of, you know, these units from Dream Home Decorator, I just like to fill them up with items that actually fit on the slots, because in wall cutaway mode, anything that's placed using like tool or move objects or anything like that, it shows as like it'll be floating in the wall cutaway mode. So I prefer to just decorate shelves in that with items that just fit on the slots, which is kind of annoying because there's a lot of objects that look like they would fit on a slot, but they don't. So I am quite limited in what I can put on the slots. There is an exception to that, and that is when a shelf is up against a platform, and the wall will always show up, like it won't be cut away in cutaway mode. So You can see the fireplace or the chimneys that I put behind the fireplaces. When I fill those up with platforms, the walls will always show us as like the full wall. It won't be the cutaway view. So I will do move objects and kind of play around with move objects and tool for items on shelves on those areas. That was a really convoluted way of explaining that, but I hope you understood what I meant. Now I'm moving on to the master bedroom. This was pretty difficult to put together. I'm happy with it, but I just feel like it's an awkward space. The fireplace and the chimney do create this kind of awkward bump out that I fill up with some cabinets. But yeah, it's fine. Like, I mean, it came together and it goes with the rest of the house. Like, the color scheme goes with the rest of the house. But yeah, I definitely struggled with this and spent way too much time on it than I needed to. I tried putting these Dream Home Decorator kitchen cabinets in here. So they go in there to start with, but I switched them out later, and you will see that in the panning shots at the end of the video. I also put in this bookshelf from Snowy Escape, and I put some Japanese inspired decor. I actually put this decor more or less throughout the house. In my headcanon, Mary Sue, because she was adopted by the oldies, in my headcanon, particularly in The Sims 2, she was adopted from Takemitsu Village, which is like a Japanese inspired vacation world in The Sims 2. Now, Takemitsu Village is not in The Sims 4, and the closest thing we have is Mount Komorebi. So I used a lot of the decor from Snowy Escape just to show that Mary Sue is more or less in touch with her cultural roots, and so she likes to have some references to that around the house. But yeah, I mean, it's mostly associated with Mount Komorebi, but we can just pretend that like Takemitsu Village is on the other side of the mountain or something. So yeah, this has come together, and just putting in a lamp on the top shelf there. I really like that bookshelf. It's elegant, very minimalist. And yeah, and I just put a couple of like shelves above it from the, I think they're from like the kitchen set from Snowy Escape or something like that. You can't actually put anything on them though. They don't have any slots, but they are nice to, I guess, section off certain things. So I was able to section off that bookshelf just for a bit of extra detail there. So I've come to the bathroom, and I have started with a Parenthood tile, and I'm using some of the seasoned assets in this bathroom here. So the pedestal sink and the toilet. I did start off with 2 pedestal sinks, but really only one could fit in for the bathroom to have a shower and a bath. The bathroom does have that little nook there, so I just turned that into like an open shower, and yeah, put in the bathtub next to the pedestal sink, and then put in like a little end table here with some clutter on that. I do change the colors of the bath and the toilet because yeah, the black was a little too much. But yeah, we've just got this little end table here, and I just put a candle and some clutter from the bathroom clutter set, and just going in with the usual bathroom clutter like the toilet brush, the soap, and the toilet paper, and the toothbrushes, and all that extra stuff that just creates a nice lived-in looking space. For the lights, so I just go with these saucer lights, these flying saucer lights. I don't do the tiny version because they make rooms look too bright, in my opinion. I do prefer more moody lighting in my game. I don't like things to look like fluorescently bright. So I do use these bigger saucer lights, shrink them down, and then make them a little bit more dim than they normally would be. So I'm moving on to the second, well, this is the half bathroom, but it also doubles as the laundry as well. So the washer and dryer in here, and then I just put in some cabinets to make it look a little more built in, and adding in some laundry clutter. And then to the left of the washing machine goes the toilet, and then we've got a pedestal sink here, and a mirror. And then I'm just gonna go in and chuck in a towel, like a handrail and a towel. hand towel rail, and some pictures and the usual toilet clutter. And yeah, that's basically this room done. I think, yeah, just got the ironing board to go, and then I'm just playing around with the light settings. And then before I moved upstairs, I just went around the house and just did like a little tidy up, added some light switches. And here we are in the upstairs part. So the stairway landing, this was a nightmare. You can see that it is a very big space. It is very awkward. So I'm just going to kind of whiz through this because I played around with so many different things that it was really hard for me to settle on anything. So I'm mostly just going to show what ends up staying. So we've got these built-in bookshelves from Dream Home Decorator. I've got a love seat there from Snowy Escape. And I think, yeah, it was a really big space for a landing, like a stair landing. And it has it's an awkward shape. It has no windows. I did create an archway to the dormer. So that, you know, it did look like some light could get into this room. But yeah, it doesn't have any windows, so it was a bit difficult to work with. And I didn't want to put too many plants in here as well, because if the room isn't light, then I can't imagine that would be a very good space for plants. So I didn't put any plants in. The one exception to that is the plant that's right next to the archway. And I did that because, that's probably the space where there is going to be enough light for that plant to live. Even though it's The Sims and, you know, the plants, like, sunlight doesn't even matter, more especially to indoor plants anyway. I don't know about, like harvestable plants. I think they can grow inside without any light. They probably can. But yeah, so I just wanted the one plant in this room here to be right next to the archway, so we can just pretend that it gets enough light. So you can see as well that the clutter that I'm doing here is starting to get a little bit messy, so things are starting to look a little bit more, I guess, cluttered and lived in. Just to show that, you know, I guess this is more of a personal space for the family, so Mary Sue isn't as uptight about keeping this space super tidy, although I do imagine that it frustrates her a little bit that the space is a bit messy. So yeah, you can see there's, you know, piles of junk, there's washing, there's a dirty cup, all that stuff that just looks just a little bit chaotic. Now, unfortunately for the girls' rooms, I actually forgot to press record. So instead of me going through and placing everything again manually, I just hit the undo button and then hit redo. You will get a much better view of the girls' rooms when we do the panning shots, but you can see here, Angela's room is much more girly, and Lilith's room is much more goth. But it is also a lot messier than Angela's. She's got a lot of mess on her floor. So now I've come through to the upstairs bathroom, and it is, again, I'm using a Parenthood tile here and continuing on with the earthy tones. So there's a lot of oranges, and there's some brown on the counter here. There's also some pink and yellow. Here I am cluttering up the cabinets here for just around the sink, so adding in some mess just to signify that teenage girls do use this bathroom. So there's a hairdryer and a messy, dirty looking set of drawers that, I don't know, it looks like it has a lot of expired makeup in it. But yeah, I really like this bathroom. I like the way it comes together. I like the color schemes, and it just has like a homey bathroom feel to it. So I am pretty much done with that bathroom, and now moving on to, this is kind of like a recreational space for Daniel, and it's where I put his exercise equipment. So in my game, Angela is active, so I imagine that she shares the space with her father, but there's just a couple of exercise machines and a chair and a stereo. I also put in some of the clutter from the everyday clutter kit, the exercise clutter. So there's that tray of weights, a water bottle, and a yoga mat. And I really like that clutter. It's really handy. I used some of it in my renovation of the Movers and Shakers gym. in Willow Creek. Yeah, it just really comes in handy for making a space look like a dedicated exercise space. So yeah, I mean, just working with this kind of awkward sectioned off dormer. That's where the treadmill is, and then sorry, no, that's where the weights machine is, and then the treadmill is in the other part of it. And now I am just moving through the rest of the house. I just put some shoes in Mary Sue's room, and I've come to the backyard to add some lights, and I'm just kind of fiddling around with the exterior before we move to the panning shots, and before I finish up the build, as I had discovered just a few more things that I thought would look better on the exterior of the house. So this group of potted plants, and now I'm back on the interior, working on the interior and just putting in the chimneys, so filling those up with platforms. And yeah, so this is what I was talking about earlier. Whenever I use the platforms, these walls that are in front of them will always show in cutaway view, so anything that you place up against them will always be visible. Now, I didn't actually show myself putting together Mary Sue's little bonsai space, but there it is there. It's very simple. And just finishing up the last of the chimneys before I move and do some quick extra details to the backyard, just adding a few more bushes so that it looks a little more interesting. And now we're moving on to the panning shot, so that brings me to the end of my voiceover. So I'm going to say thanks so much for watching. As always, it's been a pleasure to bring this to you. If you'd like to download this lot, it is available on the gallery. My gallery ID is minosimu_NZ. So yeah, I will leave you to enjoy the rest of your day and say take care, and I will talk to you later.